ways to build an application, many technologies, either the cross-platform or native technologies. And while, because we are here in Flutter Cracow, we want Flutter community to grow and for more companies to also use Flutter. And now we need to think, okay, how we can do that? So, as much as we'd like to switch React Native up to Flutter, because it's a better hybrid technology than Compose or Ionic, from business perspective, it doesn't make much sense. But for Swift or Kotlin apps, we have this opportunity that we can share the code base, and there is still many apps are written in native technologies. So, and we are going to talk a little bit about today. So this is an introduction, that's then a little bit context for choosing Flutter at OLX. After that, our approach to integrating Flutter into Otomoto. Then a little bit of code and Q&A. And hello, I'm David. I'm a developer working on mobile platform in OLX group. Here working in OLX working for 2 years. Before that also in other companies. So context for choosing Flutter at OLX. You can see OLX group has 3 bigger applications and a few smaller ones, but we are going to focus on those bigger ones today. So Otomoto, OLX, and Otomoto. And all of them were written in native technologies, so Swift and Kotlin. And they were built in silos, so each product team were building one app, and they were not really talking to each other, and there was little to no code share at all. And they thought, okay, somebody thought, we need to change that, and they built a platform team. And this platform team, long story short, has tasks for also rewritten an Otomoto app, which is this one. So this is a Flutter application that we are looking at now. But there was still, with the Flutter rewritten, we still, like you can see here, like single page advert, and the gallery component, there was still 2 components for OLX, 2 for Otomoto and 1 for Otomoto, so there was 5 galleries, and we wanted to change that. So we approached the Otomoto team about asking them if they maybe would try to Flutter as well, because we already have some code written for Otomoto, and we can easily transfer it to Otomoto as well. So I'm going to talk now about our approach of adding Flutter into Otomoto. And because this is a completely different team and they were hired as native developers working with us, we needed to have some kind of cash for them to trust us and to trust us that they are not going to lose their jobs after we are going to switch everything to Flutter. So we first understood the application that we are going to work for. After that, we approached them and asked, okay, maybe let's create a smart proof of concept. You are going to take a few developers from your team, you are going to take a few developers from my team, we are going to work together, and we are going to build like a small project, small Otomoto app. And after that, we are also going to create smart Flutter feature into our native apps. We will check how it's going to work, and maybe this is actually, this approach will actually be better than what we are doing now natively. And we are going to just choose the better approach. Either you are going to still working natively, or we are going to rewrite everything to Flutter, or we are going to add a module. So after like a little bit of month work, we built like a small POC when you could actually look for a call, message it, call it. There was no UI because we didn't actually care about UI. It was mostly just checking for the API calls because they were also migrating to GraphQL at the time, so we showed that, hey, you can use our package for GraphQL that we've written. It's very easy now to rewrite everything that you have. So after a month, we went and we started with Smart. We take another 2 developers from our team, from the Otomoto team, and we also started to teaching in Flutter. And to do that, we chose very smart feature. And that was actually new, to test few things. And here you can see this is a like call statistic for professional sellers. So you can imagine somebody has like 200 cars. A lot of people are calling him, so he just wants to know who he called, who knew, and statistic about that. And the first screen on the right, it's actually Flutter screen, and on the messages, the lower button messages the screen goes to native screen, and the call screen goes to Flutter screen as well. So we tested navigation using multiple engines, and actually teach the Flutter developers, teach native developers Flutter as well. So now at this point we have we had like 5 developers that actually knew something about Flutter. Product manager was happy with the feature and how everything went after that, and how it's going to re-render. The app jumped by like 15 or 20 megabytes, so that was actually not a problem as well. So we thought, okay, maybe this is actually the strategy to rewrite that, because we can add new features, we can improve them, but still keep our core app features in native, and teach native developers Flutter in the process. So they don't need to jump all at once to Flutter. They can slowly take some tasks and work on the feature. And this current app is actually like app that we had like 4 months ago, and now we are in the middle of the process of actually changing that, and we think in like 6 months we are going to change to a completely new Flutter app. You can see like as every app there is some web views, there is some Flutter, and we have some Flutter modules, and there is also native ones. And so it's and our migration continues. Now, if you will open Otomoto, probably half of you, because we are actually in the middle of experiment, half of you should get the new homepage and listing screen, and the business site completely on the left is fully rendered, fully changed to Flutter. And the biggest thing that we actually noticed from this change is that we actually started to, the developers from Android and from iOS actually started to talk to each other, and while they were planning a feature, we could actually plan it once, and if we had like great senior Android and great senior iOS developer, now they can work together and think about, okay, what they can achieve during working together. So, now a little bit about technical details, and before that I would like to ask everyone what is your knowledge about native, and if you ever added Flutter to native apps or not. That would help me a lot. So if somebody added Flutter to native, then please raise your hand. Okay, thank you. So there is many ways to embed Flutter into native app. You can either create a whole screen, you can take just small part of the screen, because Flutter creates, renders every pixel on the screen that it takes. So you can have like bottom navigation in native, and then render Flutter on the others, render just one more widget, or just render whole pages. And to understand how we can add Flutter to native screen, the best is to just look how Flutter team actually does that, and how our fully Flutter app is rendered into native screen. And if you would go to iOS directory in the main storyboard, you will see, I don't know, here you can have a comment, and here there is Flutter view controller that it actually handles the whole flow, and we are going to do the same in our case. On Android, it's the same. Android manifest has just one activity, which is that main activity. Also, if you would add some packages, then you would grow, but overall, when you create a fresh app, you will have that main activity. And this main activity will extend Flutter activity or Flutter fragment activity, depending on what you want to do, if you want to call some platform channel inside your Flutter app. So, we know now that we need to have a Flutter view controller. How does one create one? So to do that, for Flutter view controller to work, it needs a Flutter engine, which I'm going to talk a little bit in a moment, and a few other overridden functions. So you need to define what will happen when the view will appear and what will happen when the view will disappear. and after that you are actually good to go. There is also, I didn't mention that, but you also need to add like Flutter Cracow pods into a project. But this is very well written in the documentation, so and you are doing it only once, so there is not any point of talking about that. And the same on Android for the Flutter activity here, because it's easier example. You need to configure your Flutter engine and you need to provide one. And after you're providing one, you need to also have a launch activity when you are going to tell native when you are going to tell native shell how you want to render this activity. And a little bit about setting up repositories. When you are adding Flutter module into native apps, it generates that iOS and Android directories that cannot be changed, because every time that you are, let's say, doing new Flutter packet, it will regenerate. So when you think you want to add Google Maps to your project, on native you are going to add it via Cracow pods, and Flutter is going to use it. But the configuration for it in app delegate or in Android manifest, it's no good there. You need to go to your native applications. But what if you want to test it? Just run the Flutter module. It's possible, but you are not going to have those configs there. So you have two ways of handling that. Either after every Flutter packet, you can run a script that will actually change the app delegate and Android manifest, or you can create a new app and add your modules that you are writing there. So then when you are working on Flutter, you are working on your new app. And also, those modules are added as a dependency to your Flutter module, and from that you can add them via Cracow pods to iOS and Android cards. And this is a little bit of Zoom, how we structure our repository. So we'll have a modules like dealer page, search, detail, or leads that would not depend on each other. And then you will have a common modules, which will be application, Otomoto UI, Pigeons, and all of the common modules will depend on each other as well. And from that, we also had our platform dependencies. So every app needs a flavor, and it's like if you're building something for more markets as we are. In case of Otomoto, it's 3 markets, Polish, Portugal, and Romania. So every market has different database with every other settings for languages and different configurations. So we need a way to set it up. And I'm going to jump actually to this screen and come back to the other slide. So when you are adding Flutter view controller, adding a Flutter engine, it's the code in Flutter repository runs from an entry point. And you can see here on the top main feature, the entry point, this is where when your code would run, similarly to how your main function works in normal Flutter app. So here, then I'm going to come back to this slide. This is how you set it up on native on Kotlin. So you have your that entry point, which comes from the Flutter package, and also Flutter engine with Flutter engine group, because when you want to have multiple engines, you need to wrap them via group to not use too much memory, because one engine will take 300 megabytes of your memory, but then another one will take only a few megabytes if you would wrap them in engine group. So to the engine group, we will add our arguments via set at entry point args, and here we'll just provide our flavor that was actually set it up on native, so everything would work well. And from that, it's just taking the string and configure it. But if you want to set it up flavor on just your Flutter module, you will not have access to the flavor and to the frame on NV. So you need to create your own via string from environment. So now a little bit about communication with Veterinary. We know how to run the code, but obviously want to communicate with other screens. So, small overview. Flutter engine, normally how Flutter application works, is communicating via platform channel, where Flutter engine is added via, in iOS it will be in Flutter App Delegate or Android, or via plugin, Flutter plugin, or other stuff. And then you call your methods channel that will invoke the method, Flutter engine will take it, and on the native side, it will register it and handle it accordingly. Here you can, so via method channels, you can save your primitive data types like null, boolean, double, or integer. But the problem is that for the most part, when you are sending this data, everything will be sent as a list of, so after you're going to send it, you're going to send as a list of objects, which is not ideal. And then you need to do manual serialization. There is no compile time checks. There is a lot of boilerplate, and writing method channel is pain in the ass. So we needed a way to handle it better. And fortunately, Flutter dev team created Pigeon, which generates those platform channels, make them time safe. It's part of the official Flutter ecosystem. They also create some packages with Pigeon, like I think PDO, ABT PDO is handled like that. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how to set up your own Pigeon. So on the top of the screen you can see a configuration when you provide a path, where this file needs to be generated. And on the lower side of the screen you can see abstract class for your bridges. So there is a host API which calls host API is used when you want to call from Flutter to native screen, and Flutter API is used when you want to call a method from native to Flutter. And both can be run asynchronously, and here you can do whatever you want to do with the class. And it will be generated to method channels. Here is one setup. You need to set up a bridge, or you need to implement Flutter bridge. You need to implement Flutter bridge, and you need to also create an instance of host bridge. And after that, you can call your methods, and here everything is time safe. Nothing wrong will happen. You have compiled time checks. On Android as well, this is when you are sending the information from Flutter. This is how it's then taken on Android. You need to also extend your host bridge, and then you need to override the functions. And in case of Flutter bridge, you can just call the methods there. iOS, very similarly, you can see here also in the Flutter view controller. Whenever you want to, now you can ask how this bridge actually knows that something was called, and it's set up via setup method in the initialization of the Flutter when the Flutter engine is initialized. While we are adding Flutter to native, we had few problems. First one was spyback on iOS, and because we were using multiple engines, the other screen on the back is different engine, and the call screen on the top is also a different one. Whenever you would like to switch back to the other, because Flutter doesn't know that it is actually like some native app, from him, he renders it as he thinks that he is just this screen and nothing else after that. There is no stack after, so the swipe back doesn't work. We can handle that by actually enabling native gestures on iOS, and the native layer will handle the gesture of swiping back. But this will also happen, let's say this call screen have a different statistic screen, and you would want to swipe back from that. It will kill the whole engine, so it will close everything because native layer doesn't understand that there is something to swipe as well. So to handle that, we actually created a Pigeon that would tell native layer to either enable the native swipe or disable it, enable native gestures to swipe, or use the Flutter ones. And small use case, let's say you want to, now you have a native string, but you want to, like your designer wants to go to the different string from a bottom sheet, and you have big business logic there. You can handle that by rendering transparent activity or model in case of layers. Render then transparent scaffold with transparent background, and then you can render a screen. But in case of bottom sheet, like when you close it, you want to also close this transparent activity. You can also do that with Pigeon, so every time user will hit close, we will call bottom sheet distance. We can then send the information then via Pigeon, and we will close the whole activity. And this is small code how to do that. So you set everything to background, you set model in presentation, you set it over full screen, and it will work. On Android, there is a little bit more of a problem. There is on Flutter documentation, when you want to handle something like that, they will just tell you to set your theme in Android manifest for the activity as transparent, and then also set it as transparent in Flutter engine group, but it will not work. And to fix that, you will need to, on the intent, put extra background and transparent flags to render properly. Another problem we faced, because native apps were using a lot of our internal packages for monitoring and other stuff. And every package was built in and was added to the via Swift Packet Manager. And we had a clash because, let's say, you have native package that is wrapped via some internal dependency that also uses Firebase, for example, and you want to use Firebase on your Flutter layer as well. And when you're adding a new module to Flutter, you need to add them via Cracow pods. The Swift Packet Manager is not yet, it's not working yet. So we needed to switch every package, every SPM package dependency that we wanted to use in Flutter to Cracow pods. So this is also something that you need to remember when you are going to add Flutter. And lastly, some recommendations. So set up a monorepo, create your standalone application, make a script for native developers to ease their pay points. So to set up the Flutter, to set up actually to run the project, you should have one command for you to run everything, also to set up code generation, everything. If you're using Melos, then just Melos Bootstrap should handle everything. I advise you to modelize the application from the beginning, and whenever you are choosing the screen, start with the one that is going to have the least dependencies, and please choose whole screens instead of specific widgets, because you are adding just a small widget into a native layer is not a very pleasant experience. Thank you.